Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Let's go ahead and ask questions. You can unmute yourself, type in, go ahead and fire away.
And go ahead, Deborah, then Lolly.
Hey, Miss Deborah.
Can I pass for a moment and have Lala take it first, please?
You'll only get half the points next time. But... yeah.
Thank you.
So...
Go ahead, Lolly.
Hey, Lolly.
Okay. Hi, how are you?
Hey.
Oh my God, so many things. Okay, so first of all, let's start with, so we talk a lot about how important it is to, cleaning, energetic cleaning, doing the incense, doing all of that stuff. Is there anything addition to doing like the vagus nerve work, etheric cords, salt baths, sandalphon incense? Is there anything else that's beneficial to keep the energy body and the physical body strong, especially when doing heavier healing and stuff?
You know, it's funny that you bring that up. I was actually kind of thinking about, you know, how just things like flow through your head. And, you know, I was sitting there on a break today, and I was just kind of contemplating the difference between like an intellectual approach to something and then an intuitional approach to something. And, you know, I'm going to tie this into what you're asking. And, you know, the thing is like when we have a lot of technique, which we do, like technique is important. It teaches you how to do something. It kind of can produce a result and reproduce a result. But what starts happening with a technique over a period of time is, you know, we stop because of the technique, and there's a process in place. The mind stops inquiry. You know, it just goes, this is what we do. This is how we resolve it. This is what this is. You know, it kind of puts everything in a little bit of a pigeonhole. And when you look at it from an intuitional place, it's all about movement, and technique starts to be not as important, and it's more about the movement. And another way of saying that is you're awakening something inside the person. You know, you're basically helping the body to help itself. Where from intellect, we try to do things to the body to make it like have a certain response or go into a certain process. So like you take something that is like cleansing, for example, we think of it as like, okay, this has cleansing properties to it. But if you put the body in certain states using, say, plants or even a technique of sorts or whatever, the body can go into a state of cleansing and releasing, and it wouldn't be with like oils or plants or incenses or anything that would be considered cleansing. A really good example of this is marjoram. Marjoram actually can be quite cleansing, but when you look at it energetically, it's not really a cleansing plant. But when used like in a salt bath, it relaxes the body, it takes the body out of spasm, it moves the body into a deeper state of parasympathetic activity. And with that deeper state of parasympathetic activity, the body starts stimulating lymphatic function, and your brain goes into a repair mode and starts pruning things. You know, you're basically in that state, you're starting to shed lower vibrational energies, not because marjoram is cleansing. It's because marjoram put the body in a state that helps facilitate what we try to do with cleansing, if that makes sense. And so I like to do both. Like I don't think one's necessarily better than the other, because you know, if one was, just always doing the intuitional approach would always work. The problem is it's hard to get the body into that. So you have to do the cleansing. You have to do you have to do all those things that we would do with intellect. But I would say the goals are a little bit different. Even when you're using the technique, the goals are a little bit different. You're trying to help the body evolve. And so coming back around to what you're saying or what you're asking is there's 4 or 5 things that I usually look at when dealing with somebody, regardless of what they present with or what their presenting symptoms are. Like I always, like just what you're talking about, like I check the vagal tone. So basically vagal tone is reflective of your body's ability to go into rest and repair, just for everybody, so that we're all on the same page. And so it's the opposite of fight flight. And so, for example, if you have a digestive issue, digestion happens in rest and repair mode. It doesn't happen in fight flight. So even if you're eating food and if the body's in a high level of fight flight, you're not really absorbing nutrients as well. You're not digesting as well. You're probably, maybe even putting on a little weight. You're all kind of whatever it might be. Like it's because the body's in a very stressed state. And so even the emotions and the mind function a particular way when it's in fight flight and when it's in rest and repair. And a lot of times when we think of like, how do we get into a place where we can release this trauma? Again, coming back to this and what you're asking is practically, well, I wouldn't say impossible, but very, very difficult to release something when you're in a more stimulated fight flight kind of state. It can be done. It's little baby steps at a time. So a lot of times what we're saying is trying to release is actually the ability to just let it go, walk away from it, pick up the pieces, whatever it might be. Really what we're saying a lot of times is I want to release this is when it comes to this area, I'd like to be able to go into rest and repair. I'd be able to move past it and not feel such a triggered response. And so there's things that I look at. So there's kind of 2 lanes that you can go with this. One lane is you look at vagal tone. Another one is you look at homeostasis, like your body's ability to stabilize itself. And if you look at like sometimes when the body is in a little bit of a tailspin or feeling a little chaotic, part of what happens is the homeostasis mechanisms, like your body's just out of whack. It's, there's going through change in a positive way, and then there's going through change in a negative way. And in a negative way, it just feels like all of a sudden just weird things start happening. Like blood pressure goes up, the blood sugar gets erratic. You start getting sick real easy. You're tripping and falling a lot. You start going down this weird rabbit hole. Like you have a lot of sinus infections. You're feeling weird every time you eat. Like, you're just starting to have all these weird kind of symptoms. So again, you look at vagal tone, you look at homeostasis, right? And then you look at the overall tension in the central nervous system. And the central nervous system can get very agitated, where the person is just always feeling a little anxious or a little jittery or a little just, no matter what's happening, they're stressed out. They have weird responses to things that don't look upsetting, but they get triggered by it somewhat, and that can be a reflection of the central nervous system being agitated, or the limbic system, which we'd also call vital centers. And this is tied to like emotional learning and like behavior and things like that. So limbic function is another thing that I look at. And then last but not necessarily least is what we call homeostatic emotions, lower emotions, physiological emotions. It's just different ways of saying the same thing. But it's the emotions that your physiology generates in response to stimuli from the environment, right? And so these are kind of like, you want to check them, like when you're going through and you're really starting to evaluate people. But we can also fold this into doing work with the auric work. You know, I have little things that I'm going to be presenting to you guys. A lot of this has already been presented. It just has not been in a way that it's a system for practitioners to utilize with their clients. This has been more just experiences for the students, right? And so one of the things that you're doing, like when we're looking at, you know, we have the auric waves coming up, which is basically the functions of the aura. In the Sandalphon class, you're dealing with the physical anatomy and like blockages, like things that inhibit the flow of energy or life force through all the different areas. With the function of the aura, you're dealing with the flow of energy or the flow of life force, like the quality of the life force itself. You're not really looking at blockages the way you do in the Sandalphon technique. You're looking at, let's get the most premium gasoline to flow through these different areas of the body, right? And so in mystical practices, you know, they talk about these things with like different words. And for me, I like to use, I like to look up and see how different traditions will talk about these issues, because they'll have very different terminology and sometimes they have very different perspectives on what it is you're dealing with. And, you know, keep in mind, intellect goes, I see this symptom and I'm going to do this. Why is this happening? Why would I do this? You know, you're doing the whys, the whats, the how comes, the wheres, the whens, you know. And when you look at intuition, it's a very different animal. It's like driving through town. You might not know the names of the streets, but you know, I turn when I see this tree or I see this store over here. Somebody asks you the name of the street, you're like, I don't know. I just know when I get to that third tree on the right, I make a right, you know. And you're looking for like signs, you're looking for pieces of information. It's almost like tracking an animal. Like you don't necessarily see the animal, but you can see the footprints and you can see like the little areas that it might dwell or look for food or, you know, things like that. And so when you're dealing with that, that tends to be much deeper and much potent, because you're not stimulating the body to do something. You're bringing the body to a place where it kind of does what it does, like, and it does it better than what we can do, right? So really the skill set is, how do I get the body in a place where it can do its healing job? You know, it's not that I'm going to stimulate the healing. It's not that I'm going to break up the viruses in the body. I'm going to help the body go after the viruses itself, or I'm going to help the body deal with the inflammation itself, right? And so we go back and forth between these things, but there's these aspects that sometimes we're always wrestling with. And so we'll be covering this in the auric waves. And first piece is what you would call the force of failure. And it's just how a particular part of your aura functions. And you know, you think of situations where you get started with something and it falls apart. Your health, you get it going in the right way. Like you know, very common when somebody has like force of failure. You know, you hurt your back and you get your back worked on. You're like, oh, finally relief. And then you go walking out to the car and you trip on the curb and then you throw your back out again. you had relief and then it happens again, right? And so this isn't just bad luck. There's actually a process that's happening in the body that doesn't allow for there to be movement in a certain area, these processes. So one is force of failure. And then second is the energy of gloom. And this tends to be the emotions are feeling a bit heavier, they're harder to transmute. Always kind of seems like nothing good happens, or the perspective, nothing good happens. And even if it does, it's like, yeah, but it's still, fill in the blank. There's always something there that's not making it good. And but bottom line is there's a kind of heaviness that will reside in the body, both energetically and emotionally. And this is actually tied to the radiatory aspect of the energy body, where you're kind of sending out messages of this is the kind of thing that I want to bring in. And when you're feeling that heaviness, we tend to attract those things that make us feel heavy, right? And so this is very, very much associated with pain, physical pain, psychological pain, and the thing that I like to call karmic pain, where we have patterns that come up. And we could call them physical pain, we could call them psychological pain, but there's also this, there's social pains, there's all kinds of pains, right? And so there's that component. And then when the part of the energy body, the function of the energy body, there's a part of it that duplicates strong patterns. And so what happens is they refer to this as a primal or primitive part of the aura. And again, we're still talking about function. But what happens is when you have significant experiences or impactful experiences that are your first experience, what happens is your energy body starts going, okay, let's duplicate this, right? And it doesn't judge it as this is good, this is bad. Hey, let's duplicate this because it was amazing. It just says, this is our first experience, let's duplicate it, right? So there's part of your brain what is always trying to perceive the future and then make adjustments accordingly. Well, we assume that it's trying to adjust accordingly based on our benefit, like it's doing the most amazing thing that can happen for us. But a lot of times what it's doing is it's trying to replicate these primitive or primal patterns. These primitive or primal patterns are just first contact with something. It's not that it's primal, primordial. It's just when you were young, you had this experience. When you went to school for this first time, you had this experience. When you went to a job, when you went on a first date, when you had your first kiss, anything that's a first and that it was impactful. The primal part of the functions of the aura tend to try to duplicate that. Not judging good or bad, it just tends to duplicate it. So if you had a miserable experience, as weird as it sounds, there's part of your brain and part of your energy body that goes, yeah, don't worry, we'll keep doing it. We'll just keep doing it over and over again. Don't worry, we got this. And as much as we try to step away from this, it's still there. It's a process that's in motion that eventually contributes to what we call those auric programs, right? And then we have that aspect of the mental reflective, which is the last piece of this. And so people can have very preconceived ideas, healing's a perfect example. What one person calls healing, you ask another person healing, it might not even be in the same ballpark, so when somebody is striving for some sort of healing, mental reflective simply means that in your brain, your intellect and intuition, those two sides of your brain, are at odds with each other until it's been properly trained, right? People have moments where it can they work together, and for different people they work together to different degrees, but they're also very much at odds with each other. And so with this, that is a conflict within the person, but also that same conflict happens externally. Like when you're more intuitive and you are bringing in spontaneity or light or healing, whatever it might be, part of what happens in your body is your intellect, who's always maintaining a certain parameter of function, and it's not wanting to change. It wants to keep doing the same thing over and over again. You bring in this idea of healing or spontaneity or something, there's part of the mind that actually pushes back on that. There's the conflict, right? And so people tend to dwell more in intellect than they do in intuition. They touch intuition from time to time. They don't go there and stay there for long periods of time, except for when they've been trained, usually. And so even when people go, well, I'm naturally intuitive, they're intuitive, but still in the intellectual spectrum a lot of times. Like they're maybe a little bit more intuitive than some, but they're still their intuition still behaves more like intellect than intuition, because they each side has a behavior, right? And you have this component of even the spontaneous components in you, which are more associated with soul, when you're presenting or emanating that out through your actions, your behaviors, your words, there is an intellectual pushback from the collective, from the environment, even from nature a little bit. And this mental reflective component is more about like a kind of fixation, like what we like, what we want, what we need to have happen, rather than the reality of the situation. Intuition deals more with the reality of what's happening. Intellect is more like, but this is what I want. This is what I like it to be. This is what I need to have happen. This is what I desire, whatever it might be. And so when you go through and you work that, it allows for like a greater level of flow, both within you and with the environment. And so coming back to the thing you're saying, like how do we like tap into the things that help a person heal? Because a lot of times what we're trying to do when we're trying to release a trauma or an old memory, if you go back to the first part of the aura, right, the aspect one of the aura, that is directly tied to like memory functions, and not like how well do I remember, but the tendency is to spend too much time remembering the pains of the past, like the struggles of the past. And so when we're trying to release a trauma, really what's happening is we're remembering and focusing and fixating on too many things in the past and not being present. And so if you look at the idea of meditation isn't doing something different or new. People meditate all the time. The problem is they meditate on the wrong things. They meditate on old pains, old aches, old injuries, old whatever it is. And then they just keep calling traumas up and they have a hard time walking away from something. So the first part is of working the auric waves is you're regulating that ability to you can recall something, but you're not like in a place of dwelling in that old trauma. And if you think about how we've said it in the past, where if you have a traumatic event, there's a little piece of you still stuck there. That's the part that keeps you fixated to that situation. And so I talk about, like, when you get to a certain point, you just scoop everything up and go, I'm done with this, I'm walking away. It's the memory gets re-educated, like it gets refined so that you can recall something and then let it go. Where when this mechanism is agitated, we can't let go of the past. Like my grandfather, for example, I love him very dearly. He's passed, but 50 years later, you could mention an argument with a person that he had with this guy, down the street. You don't even have to mention the argument. You just mention that guy. And it's like that argument happened yesterday, and he would start talking about it. And I'd go, when did this happen? And he was like, I don't know, 1964, like some ages ago. But his memory was stuck on the past. And so the byproduct of it was, as he got older, he lost his memory. Like his memory just, because at some point the body has to go through the processes. And if what we're doing gets too stuck in something, then the body has to make physiological changes for that movement to happen. And so for my grandfather, that last 3 or 4 years he was alive, he could function, garden in the backyard and everything. Somebody had to watch over him, but he had no memory. Like he would see me, he knew he should know me, but he didn't know who I was. And it was like that with everybody. It was the happiest I'd ever seen him. Like he was super happy. Like he had let go of the past. Like he wasn't dwelling in that place of all those hurts and injuries and things like that. And so the second aspect of the functions of the aura has to do with like how we function in the present, right? How we handle ourselves, how we react, how we process, the movements that we make. Are we coming from a place of doing the right thing? Are we coming from a place of hurt or injury? Then that third phase, that speculation, or excuse me, that primal part of the aura is based on speculation, like the hypotheticals. Oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? Oh, if I do this, this person's going to do this to me. Or if I go ask for this, I might have repercussions at work or within the family, or I won't be accepted, whatever it is. You go down that weird rabbit hole, right? And then the last is the energy of catastrophe is the way to say this when this part of the aura is not functioning well. And you could just say, like, whatever you touch, as much as everything's all lined up, it just always falls apart, right? It's what that really is too much intellect, not enough intuition. Intellect can't hold something together and can't make it grow. It just maintains something. It needs intuition for there to be healing, or for there to be growth, or for there to be some sort of evolution. And so when the energy body and the brain and all of this lack intuition, the tendency is, even if you hold it together for a little bit, at some point it's going to blow up. Like at some point it's going to fall apart. And it's usually not, oh, I outgrew this and I walked away. It's usually, it's a doozy, And so when you're looking at these aspects, the vagal tone helps. Homeostasis helps. Like the central nervous system, treating that helps. Like all these things help. But like you want to have like the aspects of the aura pretty in place. And then these other things make it much easier. right? And so working vagal tone, you know, anything that you're doing to just calm the body down and deepen the uh, the sleep mechanisms, you know, the rest mechanisms, the repair mechanisms, all of that is quite helpful. You know, putting on the vagal tone, you know, all those little things, you know, making sure the neck's not too excessively tight, you know, making sure that the breath is slowed down and being like deep and regulated. And so, you know, with the auric programming, we put out an auric stack in the newsletter, but I would say, you know, visiting some aspect of these different pieces is always helpful in regardless whatever condition, especially chronic conditions. Like for example, cancers. You have a lot of people with cancers. You know, it's a very complicated thing. So you make sure that you stimulate vagal tone, you make sure that homeostasis is in place. But one of the things that you can see with cancer is there's usually a lot of lower emotion or a lot of repressed emotion that can be generated. And keep in mind, this is being generated by the body. So the body has been agitated for whatever reason. And if you look at most cancer patients, you know, they might have gone a period of time where the limbic system was not agitated, but at the time where the cancer is growing, the limbic system is just crazy agitated off the charts. And so as much as you try to get that person to heal in that, if you're trying to stimulate like, okay, let's destroy this cancer and let's do this and let's get the body to do this, unless that limbic function gets regulated, doesn't really take hold. Like, you know, not a lot happens. And so even with traditional treatment, part of what chemo does, it just beats down the body so that the limbic system is too fatigued to be agitated, right? And so when you treat something like that and you go and you regulate the limbic function, the body goes through the process, be it if they go through chemo or radiation, or they do it a natural way, or they do surgery, whatever it might be. Those things are usually more effective. And the flip side of it is they usually go through it in a pretty good emotional state, where most times people go through it and get pretty run down and pretty depressed when they go through it. I mean, it's a massive life-changing thing that they're going through. But when you treat the limbic function, they kind of go through it and you go, how you doing? You're like, man, I'm good. Like, you know, I'm, you know, living another day. Like, you know, they're just real matter of fact. And so different conditions might call for different things. Vagal tone's good. Homeostasis is good. Homeostasis, a quick way to treat it is just even using like valerian. Like valerian is a very good reset for when the homeostasis is out of whack. Even rosemary verbena can kind of do it, you know, like how we use rosemary verbena for a lot of liver issues and like cholesterol and things like that. Or rosemary verbena is like when the body's a little chaotic, it's a way to kind of balance out the body so that you can find a path to treat. You know, you would have them inhale it and take a little bit internally. Part of why that works is it's resetting homeostasis, like it's resetting those homeostasis mechanisms. And so it can be a very effective way of going through and doing treatment. Then, you know, you go through and you check out the limbic function and see how they are, especially if there's a lot of emotion being generated. You know, as much as the person tries to stop it, it's physiological. So their emotions and their mind are not in control of it. they're more a reflection of what's happening with limbic function. And so you have to calm down that physiology. And then when the physiology calms down, it makes it easier for them to cognitively process and transmute feelings and things like that. And there's usually still some cleanup that has to happen, but you have to calm down those production of those feelings. And then the central nervous system, yeah, if it's super agitated, you know, that's actually even built into the sound-o-fun technique. You know, in the sound-o-fun technique, on the layer 2 is Solomon's Hyssop is the one that you use for that inner layer. And if you go through and look, it's built in, like the things that it impacts, one of it is the nervous system. And part of why it's so effective, and it's very good for like the lower chakras and the basic chakra, and minimizes projections and all, you know, all these kinds of things, and reactions from projections from other people. Part of why it does that is it is soothing and stabilizing to the central nervous system. So your whole nervous system is being calmed down when you go through and you do that process, right? And so, you know, there's things like lemongrass is good for the central nervous system, kava, you know, there's all kinds of things that are good for it. But, you know, some of these things are built into the processes. And then the homeostatic emotions, you know, there's this oil, you probably have never heard me talk about it, vetiver. You know, it's like Melissa helps like several of these pieces, you know, but like when you're really trying to pinpoint and treat like what people call being grounded, is part of it is the Mingmen is regulated, and part of it is the basic chakra is like big, right? Because when it's small, the person tends to be not very practical, not very realistic. They don't get stuff done. You know, they have a hard time surviving. So the Mingmen and the basic, like when people are talking about like somebody being grounded, they're usually reflecting on that, right? You know, how balanced those two are. And that is true. Like that is very, very true. But also being grounded is the energy or the light or the lack of light that's below your feet in the ground. Like, so that idea of being grounded, it's like, are you walking in a lot of negativity, or is there a decent amount of light down below your feet? And you know, there's a couple ways to go through and work that. One is to work. Vetiver is very helpful for that. You know, that's why they refer to it as the oil of tranquility. It pulls down spiritual energy, and it pulls down light, and it physicalizes it in the body, but it actually continues and physicalizes it down below your feet. And so part of why it's very good for those homeostatic emotions is that because of that physicalizing of the light, your body doesn't have quite the reaction to the same stimuli, like the same stimuli that makes you go 0 to 60 and be super angry. If there's more light below your feet, that same stimuli might make you go 0 to 30 or 0 to 20. And then you pump the brakes and you go, maybe give me a minute. Let me think this out, right? And so Hyssop doing that pattern, the Moses pattern where you go back, heart, navel, crown, that actually also has a cleansing effect on that area below your feet. But when you're just looking at the treatment of homeostatic emotions, Vetiver is very, very effective. You know, it's very, very effective. Like that's why I say Vetiver was like the first oil that I fell in love with. It's because I was a little bit of a mess. I was a hot mess when I found it, you know,
Mhm.
and it just started calming everything down. I remember just sitting at home and I just, I don't know what this is, but it's making me feel better. And then pretty soon after a period of time, I noticed that like I'm not responding how I normally would. And you know, back then I kind of knew some principles, but I didn't understand them. You know what I mean? And I was very young. And looking back, I was seeing the benefits of vetiver, but I didn't know what I was treating. Looking back, I was like, oh, God, had I not used something like that, even though I was trying to deal with symptoms and this and that and trying to make the right choices, I was always standing in a little bit of chaos. You know what I mean? I was always standing in shenanigans, you know, whatever it might be. And you know, when you look at these aspects, you could move that into anything. And I would say these aspects are the true psychotherapy. You know, helping somebody with stress, helping somebody with trauma is very good and it's very necessary sometimes. But it's still coming from the point of view of intellect, where when you look at these components that we're talking about, they're helping to facilitate the body's ability to heal itself, the ability to heal and transmute emotions, and the mind to cognitively process and move from like things that it thinks about suffering, where it starts to recognize like the true nature of the environment, but also its own true nature. And so most of these things that you look at all have something to do with like relaxing or reducing agitation somewhere in the body. And so, you know, over the next few months, we're going to be talking about different ways of evaluating these things so you know what to treat. But sometimes when you don't know, you just start treating this little area or you start treating some aspect of the aura and the issue will present itself. And a lot of times, not only does it present itself, it resolves itself. You know, because you're stimulating the body to do what it does well. You know, sometimes you know, it's like a muscle. Like if it hasn't had a chance to really do a lot of healing on itself, and then you start resting, it's like it's not good at it. Like it needs to have some practice at it for a little bit. And, you know, pushing the vagal tone, when in doubt, always go to the vagal tone because you're helping the body to repair, but you're also deepening the potential for even deeper vagal tone activity or deeper rest and repair, so that when the body is in crisis, you have the ability to go into a deeper level of rest and get restoration from whatever's happening, where sometimes, you know, you're just getting moderate sleep or moderate um, repair time, and the body heals, but it just heals very, very, very slow. And sometimes it's not even complete healing. And so, you know, you look at the breath, you look at the diaphragm, yeah. You look at the things that people talk about, you know, like are they talking about more things in the past? Are they talking about difficulties now? Are they worried about things that might happen? And you can almost kind of tell what part of the aura is having a problem. Like if you just kind of listen to them for a little bit. And so, you know, deepening the vagal tone is good, but also working these aspects. It's like it keeps taking it to a deeper and deeper level, if that makes sense. And so, I don't know, did that answer your question or?
So the funny thing is that it is not, my question wasn't about that, but you answered so many other questions and so many things that I needed to know. So that's what my
Oh, good.
question. So first of all, that was amazing. It put so many things to me in perspective, and also things that I'm already doing and
Mhm.
feeling when I'm doing healings.
Mhm.
Especially recently when I'm working with heavier cases, and
Sure.
and I guess it also ties into, because I'm feeling like in general, just I don't feel like I'm not angry, not upset, not stressed. I'm like fine. I don't feel anything that's excessive, and I'm like, and I'm not used to being like that. And also I'm going very, like, I'm taking all the things that, I'm learning with you and everything, but I'm going different way of thought of, other
Mhm.
people
Mhm.
that do
Mhm.
that.
Sure.
And it's really cool because I'm doing healings and I'm trying to think later what I did, and I actually can't. Like, I got to a point, I'm
Right.
like, I don't even know. I don't know. It felt right. I did that. That's
Right.
what's happening. And
Yeah.
it
I,
feels like it's going much
there,
deeper.
yeah, there's something to be said about following a technique, and then there's something to be said about tracking that animal through the forest. You know what I mean?
Uh,
Like
yeah, and
there's a time and a place for both.
yeah, and so it's really interesting to see how I can really work those together. So the interesting thing, so a couple of things. My question was actually about myself, because I'm working with heavier cases. Is there anything else that I need to do, like to take care of my body or my energy body? And
Right. So deeper vagal tone. You're definitely on the right track with
for
that.
myself as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Like so an easy way of doing it, and let me just double check my notes just to make sure I'm not fucking up the side of my mouth. So good ways of doing it is you work the vagal tone, you deepen the breath, you do the things that we've talked about, but also for doing healings, um Melissa, which is something that um a lot of the students are doing, and just daily use, it does more than just the vagal tone, it does other things as well, but still
yeah, it's
very.
like my best friend. Yeah.
Yeah, you and me both. Like I have a special little bag of all my little
Mm-hmm.
and Melissa is definitely the top, that and Lotus, and so the other one is Lotus. Lotus,
Yes,
could be internal, could be topical, could be
I
both,
do both.
could be inhaled. Tuberose is another one that's right there with it. And
Mm-hmm.
so other things can be supportive, but when you're looking at like taking care of yourself and also enhancing your ability to serve and be able to do like a better job at what you're trying to do, you know what I mean, you're trying to help people heal and deal with those things. um those things also help with that. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's very good with that. And then just like salt baths. But I will say over the years, um the more that the vagal tone improves, chords really aren't an issue like they were when I was younger. And
Mm-hmm.
contamination is not an issue like it was when I was younger. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I used to be debilitated by contamination sometimes. Especially when I was doing corporate work, I'd go into an office full of stress and be doing stuff, and everybody's grinding on me while I'm there. And then when I would leave, I was just like, I need to have a whole day just to clean up. And now it's just like, maybe an hour or two in the evening or something, and I shake off what used to would have wiped me out.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is the vagal tone component. You know, you know, even looking at, you know, Hyssop being such a good cleanser and everything, part of what it does is improves vagal tone, you know.
Mhm.
And so and then the breath, like just always make sure your breath is okay. Yeah. Because your breath is a very good indicator that you're going out of vagal tone. Like if your breath
Mm.
starts to get shallow and rapid, or it starts to be times where you have a hard time catching your breath, or you know, you're doing something, God, you know, you have to keep doing that. Part of what's happening is your body starting to become acidic, and your body is going into more of an imbalance in the involuntary part of the nervous system, and it's going into more of the fight, flight, triggered, you know, freeze, whatever you want to call them. It's going into those modes. And so it starts to affect your physiology and how your physiology starts to function. And so, you know, basically your ability to go into deeper levels of parasympathetic state while you're healing and after you're healing, it deepens your ability to do healing, and it deepens your ability to walk away to have little to no impact from, you know, working on a cancer patient or working on somebody who, you know, maybe had gotten really traumatized, or, you know, something like that. And so, you know, you're on the right track with that. Like,
And I feel like that was more of like an intellectual question because no, and it's good. It was super helpful. So thank you. And it was a good. I'm doing all these things, and I'm actually and I think I'm kind of checking with myself that I'm okay, because I'm like, I'm fine. I'm not like, I work on that. It is what it is. I'm kind of surprised. I'm surprising myself maybe a little bit that I'm like, okay, I'm not getting like, and I can see a person like a few times a week, and I'm still like not getting into their stuff. Like their stuff
right.
is,
Yeah.
I did.
You're in it when you're interacting with them, but when you're done, it's like, okay, I'll walk away. And you stop thinking about it.
Yeah. And I do realize that even talking to the, you know, the clients, even before the healing, or like I have all these ideas, like all these things that are coming up, which is really, really cool and really exciting. I'm like, oh, this is, and things are connecting much better. So thank you. And I guess what I'm feeling is mostly that I feel like I'm not, like it's an okay feeling, but I'm not too bothered. I'm not stressed. I'm not too anything. And maybe I'm just getting used to, this is fine. I don't need to be to anything. And maybe my brain is like restructured.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So the intellect always feels like it needs to make something happen.
Yeah.
And when you start shifting into a little bit more of, you're in an intuitive state, your intellect keeps going like, yeah, but you should be filling the blank. Like, you know, we should be doing, so we should be making something happen. We should be, you know, da 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 da. Where in the intuitive state, it's just about like being, like you're just okay, I'm here, I'm, you know, having an experience, I'm doing a healing, I'm receiving a healing, I'm taking a nap, I'm watching a movie, like, you know, you're just kind of
And so thank you. I needed to like, and even making decisions, like things that didn't feel right for me, and actually made a decision, and I kind of shifted things around, and it's fine. That's what feels right. So I'm okay. So thank you. And then just a couple, and interesting, I actually did Vetiver just before we started.
Oh,
I was like, something is off, and I'm like, and so on the back of the head and my temples. So yeah. So a couple of things. One of them, I don't know why, I'm having this thing in my teeth, the bottom left. So sorry, it's the middle bottom towards the left a little bit. I had an issue with that a few years ago.
Your jaw, is that what you're talking about?
It's not my jaw. No, that's actually my teeth. My teeth and my gums, probably.
Okay.
I had an issue with that a few years ago. The last few days, it's been kind of bothering me. I've been doing clove. I've been doing cypress. don't know if I'm missing anything or it's
So,
just
so when you say an issue, like, what do you mean? Is it inflamed? Is it sore?
the issue that
Is it teeth
it's
getting loose?
it's not. Maybe the teeth feel like they're maybe tiny moving a little bit. It's this weird feeling. And it's kind of sore, but not painful.
But does it feels like a little spongy there, or
It doesn't, I don't think it feels like anything. It just feels like not somewhere between burning and pain, maybe. And I had an issue with that in the past and it resolved, like the gums kind of filled themselves.
and when you're using the cypress, how are you using the cypress?
I'm doing the cypress on my gums and
You're
top
rubbing
of
it directly
my,
on the gums?
yeah.
And did that change that at all?
Not sure it did. And I'm also doing
How long
clothes.
had you how long had you done that?
Last few days it's been bothering me. And I've had that in the past that it's like bothering me for a few days and it goes away, but I'm like, let's just check I'm not missing anything.
And you said bottom. Let me just look something
Yeah,
before.
it's like 22, 23-ish. And I had like an infection a few years ago, but then it resolved.
And where was she bring
So
like in the front?
222 is gonna be, you have your two front teeth, it's gonna be the one next to it.
Like the two, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's gonna be a hard one for her to. Okay, I'm gonna send you a picture. Give me just a second here.
And it takes just a minute for it to come over to mine, so give me a second, guys. Give me a sec, I'm gonna share it with you all.
Okay, so like you can kind of see the muscle, most likely that it's not responding to the treatment that you're doing, you're dealing with a trigger point. You know, because the thing with the trigger point is the problem is not where you're experiencing the difficulty, it's somewhere else, and then it's radiating pain or it's causing some sort of neurological dysfunction. And so you know, with this, there can be difficulty in swallowing, sore throat, swollen glands, teeth grinding, you know, throat and front of neck pain, traveling sinus issues, you know, like when you travel, you have the tendency, and then, you know, various kinds of head pain and back of the head pain. Yeah, there's a bunch of things. But you'll take something that's relaxing and kind of go down, like you see, like,
I'm gonna stop here, guys. There you can see Greg.
yeah. So you're gonna kind of start getting in like below the jaw. And if you want to poke, like go below the jaw and then kind of push like at a 45-degree angle. And then work your way forward. Now, if you don't want to do do it with the flats of your fingers, not the tips. Like you just hold it for about 7 to 10 seconds. And then let go. And then there you go. And then just keep going back and forth. Or take something like spikenard or vetiver and then rub it like on this area under your chin. and then
Okay.
up around the side of the jaw. You know, like all in this area. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And that's a plus,
even
and that's gonna
even
release.
yeah, should have an impact on that. You might need, I mean, just to treat with oils might take a few days, but like if you get in and kind of manually kind of poke up under in there,
Yeah.
you stay close to the bone, you feel it's kind of tender. Like you can
Mhm.
kind of hit some of those spots, and you can look at the muscle, like
Yeah, and
how it attaches.
everything is tight around there. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you get like you go kind of back behind the chin and then start going up, that's usually the naughty place. You know, it's just so much tension there. I used to get
Okay.
really bad cramps in there, and I started noticing, this is before I knew the trigger points, that whenever I would get cramps in that area, I would also have really bad stuffy nose. And
Hmm.
when I resolved the cramps, you know, because I was like cramping there like 2 or 3 times a day, like it was crazy. And when I resolved that, all my sinus issues went away.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So basically, because it's so tight, so an issue from
Yeah.
the past,
Well,
because the area is
it's
sensitive.
it's not just that it's tight, it's developed a trigger point. And a trigger point is like an area that throws off the nervous system, the lymphatic system. It actually even throws off cognitive processes and like how the mind works. And so it basically is causing a neurological issue that is starting to cause dysfunction that's not just about the muscle anymore. So there's a muscle, you know, there's tightness, there's tension, there's knots. But when it comes to the point of being a trigger point, it actually starts to cause neurological dysfunction in the body. Like if you had trigger points in and around your navel, you would probably have a lot of diarrhea, for example, or you wouldn't assimilate a lot of nutrients because of those trigger points in the gut or the lower part of the abdomen. And so by going through and treating this, it takes some of the pressure and the referred pain that's going up into the teeth, because it's not that it will just hurt, that area will stop functioning like it should. So, you know, it will get tight or it gets inflamed, or it's just, you know, something starts happening, right? It starts to lose tone. It could be any number of things. And so, as much as you treat the area, when something's not responding, it usually is a byproduct of some sort of trigger point activity that's causing some dysfunction. And trigger point activity is being generated because your body is not going into the state of restoration in sleep. Like bottom line,
Yeah.
like
So it goes back to that.
well, yeah. So like
Mhm.
if you are not getting super deep sleep, your
Yeah.
body's not resetting, and so what happens is you start to develop these trigger points over a period of time, and they'll snowball. They'll start spreading into
Yeah.
other areas, and so you know it's referred to as the anabolic state. And so if you're not regenerating and restoring in your sleep, then you are degenerating, and your body is breaking down at a faster rate if you're not reaching that stage of sleep. And so you like you said, it's a little bit of a twofold thing. Going back to the beginning of the conversation,
Mhm.
vagal tone,
Yeah.
homeostasis, you get all those things, but then you're
Mhm.
still treating the teeth, and you're still treating the trigger point, and you're still
Yeah.
treating all of that, so that it all comes together and heals.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, and then you would do it what, like a couple of times a day, massaging?
Yeah. If you could do it
Okay.
twice a day, that would be great. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll start doing that. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. I have other questions, but I'm not gonna, I'll let other people. I have just one quick product question. The new sleep Spagyric one that you have,
Mhm.
one of the oils is the St. John's rot that we talked about before, right? The
In
St. John's
in
in the
the
sleep.
the herbal sleep support.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
That's
So
the herbal version of St. John's wort. That's
mm,
not the essential oil.
okay, so then I'm just wondering, because you mentioned that sometimes there's an issue with taking that if somebody is on a lot of medications, because then the medications don't work
With
as
the
well.
herb, it's not that big of a
And so it's not the same.
right.
Okay.
Well,
I
it could be
just
the same, but you would have to take
a larger
what's
amount of.
the clinical term? You'd have to take a buttload of it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You'd have to take a big dosage. With the oils, that's easy to do. Like to take a big
Okay.
dosage. With herbs, you'd have to work pretty hard.
Okay, perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
You're so welcome.
And then go ahead, Priya, then Ralph.
Hey, Priya.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
Good, thanks. Such a great discussion on vagal tone. Thank you for that.
No, thank you.
I was wondering for myself, based on everything that you know, if I was to stick with one oil, make it my best friend for the next few months for salt bath, for vagal tone, which one do you reckon it would be?
Your best friend for salt bath. Let me think about this. Okay, so I'm going to give you several choices, and then you kind of do the math of which one you think. Cistus, any kind of fir, any kind of spruce, sitka, or tuberose.
Yeah. And
Tuberose is amazing, but it's also expensive. You're talking about salt baths. If I were you, I'd probably go sitka.
Yep.
Sitka or like a white spruce or a black spruce, something like that. But
No worries. Yeah, usually I stick with a 3 times a week kind of routine with half a kilo of salt. And I've been doing chakral root cleanser or
Right.
Palo Santo and stuff like that.
So the thing with these, they'll have a cleansing effect, they'll have a soothing effect, but they'll also, like in a very general way, they'll very much help with the stimulation of that aspect in the aura of intuition. Like the intuition and healing the past. There's all the protocols, but when you're looking at like what salt baths could I do to kind of support this? And yeah, you could use things like in that class, but if you just look at like single oils to like use as baths or incenses and things like that, all of those are solid choices. Sitka is always very good. And if you think about, going back to my mom again, my mom's not into any of this stuff. Like, she likes her colloidal silver, but all the oils and everything. She's always nice when I'm around, but it's not like she doesn't very much or anything. And so I remember the first time I gave her Sitka and she put it on and she was like, this is nice. And then I looked over at her because she got quiet. She had fallen asleep. And then she was going through a really stressful time when I gave it to her, really super stressful time. And when she woke up, I go, she was only asleep like maybe 10 minutes. And I go, you okay? And she was like, yeah. And she goes, it's the weirdest thing. There's not a thought in my head. Like all the thoughts are gone. And that's literally what intuition does. Is it shifts you out of the repetitive thinking and the those things that we think about from the past or the things that are happening now that can be a little bit like it's like your body gets to go into a thing of like, yeah, maybe it was a bad day, but let's salvage it and have a good night. Like, you know what I mean? You kind of are able to shift into that mode. And for me, Sitka, I would say, is one of those. Sitka and the spruces are just, they're like a bread and butter oil for me. In the early days, we didn't send out kits like this. I would show up in person, and then, the kit might have like some in the class, but sometimes I just give stuff to people. Like I think for like the first year I was teaching, regardless of what I was teaching, I always gave everybody a bottle of Sitka. And it was just because it's amazing. But white spruce is right there with it. And black spruce is slightly different, but it does the very similar thing. So I'd say Sitka or white spruce, or black spruce. Yeah.
Yep.
Those
Now,
are
another
super good
thing.
choices. Cistus could be good, but the issue with cistus is that sometimes it makes you process like things a little too intensely in your dream time. And so you might have like really intense, like kind of, I wouldn't call them negative dreams, but they're not pleasant dreams. You know what I mean? You know, those dreams where you wake up and you're like, whatever that was, I was working through something,
Mm,
Cistus is good for that. So that's not a daily thing, but that's a from time to time thing. When you're talking about what's your best friend, I go back to the spruces or Sitka.
thank you. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
For sleep, I was taking a valerian, but
Yeah.
it's not, like, for me, I feel like if I take the mixture of Melissa and spikenard,
Mhm.
that somehow works better than
Yeah. Yeah.
valerian for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. Yeah.
Okay,
I,
so
I, I,
it's
I
fine.
mean, I like valerian, but I'm the same way. Like sometimes valerian works and sometimes it doesn't. Valerian, there is a little bit of this weird thing with valerian that if you're needing to fall asleep and you're tired and it does help the body um, reset the homeostasis mechanism, but sometimes if you get too tired or too fatigued, valerian turns into a stimulant. And so what happens sometimes if you get too tired and you take it, all of a sudden you can't sleep. And so what that means is you're actually starting to enter into the realm of exhaustion. And so that's in the early days, that's one of the ways that I would check somebody for chronic fatigue syndrome is I would give them a dosage of, I'd talk it out with them and I'd go, well, if this makes you relax, you do not have chronic fatigue syndrome. But if you take valerian and it gives you some energy, you have chronic fatigue syndrome, because it's when the body's exhausted, it acts as a stimulant. And so, you know, even that is the body still trying to regulate homeostasis, but it stops being about relaxation. It's starting to jumpstart and stimulate body processes rather than relaxing the body. And so, like if you're needing sleep and you take it right before bed, that's not the time to do that test. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And so, like if you start having that experience, I would go back to, like you said, the Melissa, the spikenard, and spikenard and valerian chemically, like if you break down and you put it under a microscope, chemically they're very similar, but spikenard doesn't do that, where valerian does that. And so I remember many years ago with some of my medical aromatherapy friends, these guys were all like older than me, like they're old timers, and we'd sit around and talk shop. And one of the things that they would say is like, is there really a need for valerian essential oil? Because it's so close to spikenard. But when you really look at the personalities of the two, it's like they're related, but they do have their own personality. You know what I mean? And if you're dealing with fatigue or you think there's exhaustion, spikenard's a better choice, melissa's a better choice. And one that you wouldn't think about is like wormwood or artemisia, or not artemisia, absinthium. absinthium is one of the better oils for treating exhaustion. It won't necessarily like knock you out and make you sleep better, but it starts fortifying the body to where it starts diminishing the effects of exhaustion. Because like part of the thing with exhaustion throws off the nervous system, it overactivates your adrenals. All these things start happening because of the exhaustion for your body to compensate and be able to function. And so the absinthium allows the body to go into a state of repair rather than trying to, muster up some energy so that you can function the next day, if that makes
Mm.
sense.
Thank you. Last few days I was feeling a bit flat after placement, just going home and not being as productive. And I went back to, and I'd never done the cinnamon materialization breath. I'd never tried it with cinnamon, and I did that. And I wanted to share with you that the shift that I felt. I was painting, I was playing my musical
Yeah, beautiful.
instruments,
Yeah.
I was reading, like, I don't know, I just felt like I was able to get into the zone and out of, just sitting there,
You're right.
thinking. But to be able to experience, it's one thing, taking notes and stuff like that, but to be able to apply and then experience that so quickly, it was so good. I was like,
for
wow,
you.
this stuff is so
Yeah.
great. Because, especially because it's such a small practice, and sometimes I feel like how powerful and how potent that I've only done it like 3 times.
Right.
And,
Yeah. I hear you.
just
Yeah.
out of where I was stuck. So thank you for
Well,
that.
the cinnamon like really helps you to be more outgoing. Like if you just like think of it as like what are the things that cinnamon's doing for you? It's helping you to be more outgoing. It's helping you to be more thick-skinned. And so you have the less tendency to get have a reaction to people taking little pokes at you, as you're out in the world. And it's very activating to the heart and to the basic chakra, which is tied to prosperity, materialization, getting things done. And so if you think about, if you were like sitting at a party or something, and you see the people who are on the corner who are all shy, the introverts, they're not really talking to somebody. It's obvious that they're introverts, right? And they would be horrified to speak up or say something and then have somebody judge it or something, so they'll stay quiet. And then you look at the extrovert, and the extrovert goes from person to person and say, he's wanting to write down something. He goes from person to person. You have a pen? Do you have a pen? Can I borrow a pen? Do you have a pen? And everybody tells them no, and they go from person to person to person. And they might even be a little bit pushy about it, like, please, can I have a pen? Da 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 da. Keep asking about the pen. And then finally, maybe they come to you and you're like, no, I don't have a pen. And they keep asking and asking. You're like, no, look, I don't have a pen. And you kind of snap at them. And then you go, oh, God, I was so rude to that person. If you watch them, didn't phase them. They don't stop until they get that pen, right? And then they get the pen, they do whatever they're going to do. So we don't want to be the extreme either way. We want to be and be able to be extroverted, but still be aware socially to social cues, and like, I don't want to be acting like a jerk, right? And we don't want to be so introverted that we're frozen and have a hard time going and interacting. But we want to be able to be extroverted, and we want to be able to be introverted. We want to be able to go within and reflect. We want to be able to go out and perform, right? And so the outgoing component, very heavy with cinnamon. Like cinnamon can take a punch. Cinnamon doesn't know depression. Cinnamon, like if somebody's being obnoxious to you, cinnamon could care less. Like whatever. Like cinnamon is just like, whatever. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And so when you're having times where you feel like, I just can't get it going, I'm super overwhelmed with everything in my environment. And being an artist, you're also expressing yourself and then putting it out there for other people to judge, right? So that's always a little bit of a thing for somebody who's doing an artistic endeavor. And it makes you a little bit more thick-skinned to people, like maybe they don't like it, or maybe they don't like my style, or maybe they don't like the topic, or whatever. Maybe they don't like art, whatever it is. And so both is good. Being able to go out and perform and get something done without feeling the pushback is good. But I'd say just as equally, being able to step back, reflect on a behavior, reflect on what happened, all that is equally as good. And so if you find yourself stuck in one or the other, usually somebody who's super extroverted wouldn't even be having this conversation. This is usually more of a conversation with people who are more introverted. Extroverts are just out doing what they do. You know what I mean? And so the healthy thing is to be able to do both. So if you catch yourself being more of one than the other, you just balance it out with doing things that make you a little bit more reflective and going inward a little bit more, But you have time to go inward and recharge and reboot and reflect and think about things you'd like to do in the world or how you'd like to handle your time. And then when you're out being an extrovert, you're just making it happen, and then you go back and reflect again. You kind of keep going back and forth. But yeah, when I was
I
younger, I
think
was very introverted. Now you can't shut me up in public, but there will be times where, I'll be with friends or something, and I get really quiet. I don't really have, I'm glad to see them and everything, but I don't have a lot to say or something. And I'm just watching them, observing them, and thinking about life and whatever. And just because you're out in front of people doesn't always mean you have to be extroverted. Is the point I was trying to make.
mm, I think with me, I find that I do. I've been taking cinnamon internally for the last few months, and it has greatly helped me. And only today, this morning, I did not, and I had to go to the shops and get some shot black. I was like, I need an espresso shot today.
Yeah, yeah,
But um,
yeah.
but there are things that sometimes happen which sort of bring my past to surface, like
Mhm.
someone saying something or doing something and it bringing back some of the trauma from the childhood, or and then I just become completely withdrawn and introvert, and just doesn't matter what I do, I'll just be closed off. And yeah, then it just takes me some time to sort of get out of that. So I guess my question is, to be able to become more stable in that gray area where you can take a few punches on without being so much
Right,
impacted
right,
by
right.
it, like things that would not make so much difference to somebody, they do make a difference to me because,
Sure. Yeah,
I've had that past.
yeah, yeah.
And that's why I do know that I need to do more work on my vagal tone. But is there anything else that I can do? I am taking cinnamon internally,
Okay,
and
cinnamon internally. I like the idea of the sitka or the spruce. I'm going to throw another thing in there with you, and it's very straightforward. Is frankincense. And the thing with frankincense is, like in a general way, it's very good for the functions of the aura, and just like how eucalyptus smithy or melissa is very good for the blockages in the body or the structure. Frankincense is very good in a general way for the functions. And
mm,
the thing that, if you think about functions, there it's movements, it's processes, it's reacting to things. It's reacting to things in the environment. It's reacting to the blockages or lack of blockages within the body or the emotions or the mind. And Frankincense makes you less reactive to environmental stimuli. So that could be allergies, that could be a negative situation, could be negative people, could be just that you go out and you get overstimulated. It doesn't necessarily calm down the sensory nerves the way like sage does or vetiver, but it makes you less reactive to it. Like it just it kind of makes you a little bit more even keeled, and it prepares the body for more essence to flow through it, which means you're refining the structures and things like that. And so, it might not be a thing that you do every day, but they did this study many years ago, and they found that when person took either 2 or 3 drops of frankincense essential oil or frankincense tincture, and they did it daily, that they had less sensitivities, food sensitivities, chemical sensitivities, allergy sensitivities, but also they had less sensitivities to obnoxious people, to people being, mouthy about something, or, you're around a bunch of people who are opinionated. It doesn't make you thick-skinned. It almost makes it like there's no Velcro for the poke to stick to, if you know what I mean. Somebody says something, you're like, bah, okay, that was an obnoxious thing to say, rather than, that was an obnoxious thing to say. It kind of changes. Like, yeah, that person was being obnoxious, but it's like, okay, you walk away and you're like, that person's a jerk, versus like, and so I kind of like that for you as well. Anytime somebody's sensitive, there's not like a clear-cut path of like do this, this, and this, but frankincense helps. Again, the sitka helps. Sages always help. Vetiver always helps. All those things are very helpful in those areas. And then cinnamon's helpful because it makes you a little bit more like thick-skinned.
Well, I'm still waiting for that thick skin to sort of
Yeah.
emerge.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
been a few months of taking it internally, and that was my next question. If cinnamon is not making me thick-skinned, what else would make me
It's
thick-skinned? Because
cinnamon and the other things you're doing, and some time. Like it's
yeah,
it's just you need some more time. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And that I have come a long, long,
Yeah.
long
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. I would agree.
But still not where I would like to be fully.
Sure.
Now with frankincense, I've got frankincense and myrrh. Is that all right to take it as a combination internally,
That
or
would be okay as a combination, but ideally you would probably do it by itself. Frankincense and myrrh is a good second choice. If you're going to do just by itself, though, any of the frankincenses will work. The ultra, the regular, the serrata. Vital would probably still work. It's just Vital is a little bit more heady. I personally love it, but it's a little bit more heady. Golden frankincense would also work. Black frankincense is probably the strongest cleanser out of them. And so, yeah, but any of them.
yeah. All right, I'll send an email to
Okay.
Sam for that one. And there was a couple more things I wanted to find out. What's APR for? What is it used for?
Well, originally it was used for doing it's called APR because it's aromatic positional release. I would in the old days I would put people in positions and then I'd have them inhale it so that their body would make a shift with the fascia and stuff. But what we found out is like it kind of undoes like the muscle memory or like a holding pattern. So like if you had a tight neck, you roll it on the area and then that area lets go and then you have like a little bit of more movement and it reduces the pain substantially. And so it's about muscle memory and like long held like fascial tension or long held chronic like spasms in an area. It helps them to release so that you can align the body better and you know, postural misalignments to correct. But if there's a restriction in some area, we used to use it like it would put the arm in a particular position and then inhale as you let that shoulder relax. And so we've started using it for a lot of other things, but it's usually all kind of muscle memory oriented. Yeah.
Thank you. That's everything for me
Yeah,
today.
yeah,
Thank you so
okay.
much.
You're so welcome.
And then go ahead, Ralph, then Lolly.
Hey, Ralph.
Hey, Greg. Thanks for the ARC programming stack for the Vagal Tone.
Oh, yeah, yeah. My pleasure.
Yeah,
I'm still working on that other one for you, the one that you sent the email about.
Okay. All right. Cardio support. I don't happen
Yes.
to have that in my kit at the moment. Can I use rosemary verbone as a B choice?
Yes. Yes, yes.
Okay. All right.
Did it not come in your kit or?
I just don't happen to have it in my cigar box at the moment.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, okay.
So,
Yeah, I hear you on that one.
and the
I always
blend.
seem to like when I travel, I have all these oils with me and I always need the one I don't have.
Yeah, exactly. Angel support. Is there a B choice for that?
Anything that enhances like vagal tone, because part of what angel support is, it increases like vagal tone. So you have that blend vagal tone that would work. If not, any oil, single oil that would be helpful. So,
Okay.
you know, tuberose, lotus, but marjoram, tarragon, sage, you know, hyssop, anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like angel support is like just another way to hit vagal tone.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
And then go ahead, Lolly.
Hey.
Hi. I'm just going to two really quick questions. To follow up on the cinnamon question. So, cassia, right? It has some similar properties,
Oh, they're
or
almost identical, to be honest with you. The big difference between cassia and regular cinnamon leaf, cinnamon bark is a bit stronger than the cinnamon leaf or the cassia, but sometimes it might be a little too strong for somebody. So cinnamon leaf or cassia is always a good place to start. The difference is that they have all the same properties. They're very good for circulation, all those things, but cassia has a slight like effect on thinning the blood. It's very, very slight. It's not even as much as like lemon or something like that. But if you were to really differentiate the two, that's about all I could come up with. You know, and a lot of times when you buy cinnamon, you're really buying cassia. You know, not just in oils, even in the spices. Like a lot of times when you buy cinnamon, it's actually ground up cassia. And so it's so
Okay.
interchangeable that it's just one of those things. But
okay, and the thinning of the blood would be just if you take in it. Can you take cassia? You can take
oh yeah,
cassia
you could totally take it
internally.
internal. Like
Yeah.
it's not that it would cause some side effect, but like sometimes people are trying to do things to you know, reduce clotting and things like that, you know, especially with heart conditions.
Mhm.
I don't know that it's strong enough to say that I would use that for that, but it does have a slight like thinning of the blood, like you're just making it less viscous. And so the reason why you would use that sometimes is not so much to treat heart issues, but sometimes when you're dealing with spasms in the body, like say you have a backache or something, and you look at like, okay, you look at pharmaceutical ways of how do I reduce this spasm? You know, they give you a muscle relaxer.
Mhm.
Well, there's some muscle relaxers that try to relax the nerves of those areas so that the muscle relaxes, right? Then there's another approach where they use things that are muscle relaxers, but what's really happening is they have a bit of a thinning effect on the blood. So in that tense tissue, they're thinning the blood so that the blood is more penetrating into that tissue, which then hydrates that tissue and allows it to relax. So you would use cassia not so much for the treatment of like a heart issue where there's you need a blood thinner or clotting issue. I would use them more in like thinning the blood to try to get blood into tissues that are so contracted that they have a very poor blood supply. Like when you have like say a back issue, sometimes your back muscles get so rigid they start behaving more like bones than like muscle. Like, you know, they're limiting your ability to move. And so if you palpate those, they're just like rocks. And so as much as you try to use muscle relaxers on them, they'll relax a little bit, but you need to get blood like penetrating into those. And so cassia and things like thyme, you know, black pepper, like it's about getting blood into tissue that it's in very like gnarly kind of contractures. And one that you wouldn't think about as being good for circulation, but is wintergreen. And it's because it can take out a really chronic cramp. And because of that, part of how it does it is it gets blood into those tissues that are super, super contracted. And so, yeah, it's just a different way of approaching these things.
Okay. And then, so if you have like, let's say small hematoma, let's say somebody had like IV and they, developed like a small hematoma, which is not a blood clot, it just
Right.
needs to move. Would you use one of these options? Like same idea?
You would use helichrysum or yarrow. And the helichrysum, it has a little bit of a thinning effect on the blood, but it's anti-inflammatory and it helps blood to move out of that area where the cassia would move more blood into that area. So the cassia actually might make it a little bit worse. The the helichrysum will break up the old stagnant blood and move it out. And so that for like a hematoma or like a bruise or something like that, you want to use more like helichrysum or arnica or even hyssop. Hyssop on those areas can be good, but yarrow, German chamomile, things like that. Things that have like an anti-inflammatory effect. You know, they're still like one of the best things for clotting issues is yarrow. Because if you're producing too many producing clots, it will regulate that. But if you're bleeding and you're on blood thinners and you're not producing a clot to stop the bleeding, it will actually elevate the production of clots. So it's like yarrow is very regulating to the clotting factor. So if it's too high, it regulates it. If it's too low, it regulates it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And then a quick one for canker sores, like in the mouth, where I don't know, somebody bit the tongue or bit the side of the cheek, something that's kind of annoying. What would you use for that?
So you could use Melissa, but probably a much easier thing to use and much less effect like not as expensive is Eucalyptus citrodora. A fraction of the cost. It has some of the same chemicals, chemistry in it that would also help reduce some of that as well. And it's very good anti-inflammatory, very good antiviral. I would use that just because like a little 10 ml bottle is like what, probably $12 or something.
Yeah.
Where, you know, Melissa is pretty pricey. Melissa
Mhm.
works probably the best, but the Citradora
Yeah.
is like 80% there and like, you know, a tenth of the price.
Okay. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
Oh, and then Samantha said that she's always used tea tree for that.
Oh yeah.
Tea tree would do it.
Maybe,
I
yeah.
forget about tea tree sometimes. Tea tree's a workhorse, man. Tea tree does so many things. Like it's
Yeah.
and,
Perfect. Thank you. And then just one last thing. So Angel class that's coming up. So there's one that's like the free class in like not this week, next weekend, I think. So there's like angels and the aura. And then there's another one that's like the angel healing, right?
Mhm,
So
Angelic.
there's two of them.
Mhm.
I mean, they're different, obviously. Can you just talk a little bit about
So the angels in your aura is like just refining the different aspects of the aura, not like in depth how we do like in the auric programming and everything, but still just prepping for like if you're going to invoke angels and things to clean up the energy body in a way, especially the aura, to be able to invoke the angels. The angelic healing is about a bunch of processes that you would use that is like kind of a deeper version of that. So the angels and aura, you're still working the aura, but instead of using blends and everything, you just made it like a very simplified way of treating blockages, the function, the dynamics, the auric programming, um, uh, the intuitional part, and then the soul ray component. You know, there's a very simplified way of doing all that. It's not as deep as doing all those healing processes, but still, when you're sitting down to invoke an angel, the more those things are cleaned up, the deeper the presence you'll feel.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so.
So I'm just gonna have you talk a little bit more about the angelic healing because it's a 2.0. And I know a lot of people took the angelic healing. What's the 2.0 aspect going to kind of?
Yeah, so before we talked about in the angelic healing, you know, we did bodies processes for being able to handle the angelic energy and being able to harness the angelic energy. And the 2.0 version, you know, all those things still stand, but we're taking it a little bit more into the intuitive processes and doing a little bit of a deeper dive in all those processes that we did. And so, you know, a lot of times some of those processes, I'll put them out, but I'll do it in a way that like, okay, I think everybody's energy body can handle this. But when we do a 2.0, it's usually a deeper dive. It's a bit of a stronger class. And we don't, it's not that we're holding back, but you know, you have to give the energy body the right dose of medicine at the right time. And so like the 2.0 is usually extra strength versus the standard dosage, if that makes sense.
And go ahead, Lolly.
Hey.
Okay, so then follow-up question to that. If I did have a chance to take the first one,
No, you're fine. You've
I'm
been doing so
good,
many other
right?
classes. Yeah, you're fine.
And I could just do and I can, if I don't have
Mhm.
time, I can just catch up after the 2.0,
Yeah,
right? Okay, just want to double check. Thanks.
Yeah.
And then we have some questions in
Yeah,
chat
yeah.
as well.
Right.
I've seen both Vetiver and Vetivert.
Yeah.
Are those two spellings for the same plant?
Yes, same spelling. Yeah. Yeah. And then another one is Ruscus. Ruscus is like a little bit of fancier vetiver. It's like a wild vetiver where most of the vetivers are cultivated, which is still good. Like, but they're cultivated, and Ruscus is a little bit wilder. But vetiver or vetivert, both is the same thing.
I think, I apologize, guys. I know this is out of order, so I just want to make sure I get what you're referring to here. They said, can we please have the new oil opodeldoc as a body tonic on the site and incense?
Yeah, I think I've already made the incense.
Okay.
I made that for us, but like,
Okay.
I'll let some go to the students. Oh, it reminds me, we gotta go back that.
Yeah, apparently I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, and so the body tonic. So we have the essential oil, we have the, the incense has already been made, but the opodeldoc, it's probably a little bit of a even stronger cleanser than orange healer. For environmental space or for the body, and it's very relaxing to the diaphragm, the psoas, and the sternocleidomastoid. And so the body tonic is the essential oils in there, but I also made that same formula with herbal extracts. So on the body tonic, you're getting both the herbal version and the essential oil version mixed together. So you're getting a much fuller spectrum of what that body, what those oils or what those plants can do. And so, it's not quite a spadry. It's hard to do spadries with multiple things in it. It's better to do just one plant at a time, but it's as close to spadry as you're going to get, like doing blends like that. And so it was one of the original formulas from Paracelsus, the blend Paracelsus. This is a variation of that. It's the Paracelsus blend and then the opodeldoc were the two go-to things for that alchemist. When he would treat people and do healings on people, he would use these two. And so, yeah.
Earlier, when you were talking about sleep stuff, you mentioned wormwood and absinthium as well. Someone's asking, can you do internal absinthium?
No, absinthium and wormwood are too potent to take internal. And the thing is it's not so much for sleep, it's more for exhaustion. And so if you were going to do wormwood internally, I would do capsules or a tincture from somebody. We're going to have wormwood tinctures available here sometime soon. The one thing that I will say about the tinctures, though, it is one of the most bitter herbs there is. Like that and golden seal are the two like most bitter herbs, and you might want to take it in capsules. Just saying. Yeah.
So I think it'd be helpful for people to know the difference between the herbal tincture, just the tinctures, and the Spagyric tincture. Like how are they different?
Oh, okay. So when Spagyric is an alchemical process where we take the tincture and like a hydrosol and maybe a CO2 and tincture, essential oil, CO2, and sometimes how we make the supremes where we take the same plant from different regions and mix it all. So it is that, but also the plant is burned down to an ash so that you get some of the mineral that would not normally be available. So then it even has just a little tiny bit of ash mixed in with it. And then you put it together in this alchemical process. And so energetically, it is the most potent out of all the different ways of doing it. And it's very harmonizing to the soul and body, like it harmonizes those two components. And so it's very, very soothing, regardless of what you're using it to treat. And so a lot of times these are used for psychological or spiritual development, but you can use them for physical things as well. I mean, I do. Then you have herbal tinctures. So herbal tinctures are just the herbal extracts. There's no essential oil been added to these. And the herbal extracts that we're doing most tinctures are a 4-to-1 ratio. Sometimes they're even 8-to-1. So 4-to-1 means 4 parts alcohol to 1 part plant. The tinctures that we're making are 2-to-1. So it's 2 parts alcohol to 1 part plant. So they're twice as potent as anything else that's on the market for the most part. Most people are doing 4-to-1. And so we're making them extra strong. So it's not just a regular tincture, it's a pretty potent tincture. Then we have when it says I don't know that we've even put them out yet. Well, we'll say H and then /EO. It's herbal tincture and essential oils together. And so that means that it's like a normal tincture, but we've added essential oils. And so with that, you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. And sometimes the herbal tincture might not be the same oils that got mixed in with it, and so yeah, there's just various combinations like that. Sometimes a blend might not be something of essential oils, might not be something you would take internal because maybe some of the oils are too strong, but you can take the herbal version of it and still get some benefit from it. And so there's just all these variations. So we're trying to standardize all of this for you guys. So, you see what it is and then you can just follow suit. But, some of the ones marked support, like sleep support, for example, like it's just as potent taking it internally as you sitting and inhaling it and going around and doing the quadrants of the aura. So if you do them both together, oh man, it takes off like nobody's business. So it deepens the process. And so we're kind of doing it so when you're treating something, you kind of overlap and layer some of these things to make for a very deep healing process. And so this is things we've had in motion for like what, maybe a year. Like we were planning this almost a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, and just starting to unwind all of it. So.
And I'm just gonna jump and add just one more element that I don't know if it's gonna be helpful for you guys, but we do have categories. I am gonna show you guys if you're watching the screen at all. So we have the category tinctures, okay? And some will say herbal and some do not say herbal. If they say herbal, it's also because Greg has another actual essential oil that is that. So we have the sleep support oil, but now he has the herbal sleep support tincture, in which, like he said, is different, but it's like the herbal version that you could take internal.
Right.
And I just want to specify, and that's because some of those essential oils, again, you wouldn't take those internal.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to just kind of specify that because like the herbal Solomon's Hyssop, you would not want to be taking Solomon's Hyssop essential oil internal.
Right.
So we'll keep making that more clear for you guys, but I wanted to make that kind of out there for you guys right now. So if it's a tincture, you can take it internal, period. And then if you have question whether other things you can or can't, just let us know. Email us. We're happy to answer those for you. Can Greg talk about Lady Slipper?
Lady Slipper. Lady Slipper is like a more potent form of valerian. Like, you know how we were talking about resetting the homeostasis mechanisms. Valerian's very good in the essential oil world. Herbally, it's very good, but in herbally, an even better version is Lady Slipper. The issue with Lady Slipper is it's hard to get and it's kind of expensive in the herbal world. And so there is no essential oil of Lady Slipper. So you're really left with having to use a tincture or so. Every once in a while you find capsules of it. But the thing that I like about the tinctures is the capsules, I've bought them through the years, and sometimes by the time I get them, nobody really knows about it. So sometimes they sit on the shelves for 5 or 10 years, and you'll buy them and they have really no potency. In a tincture form, it doesn't lose the potency over a period of time. And so, Lady Slipper by itself really helps to reset homeostasis. And in the old days, they used to use Lady Slipper when treating people going off like heroin and morphine and opium and cocaine. And, because back in the turn of the century, all that stuff was legal. And you could just go to the pharmacy and get all that stuff. And so they would have to deal with people who are super addicted to it. And when they start to go off of it, their nerves are just shot. Their body's not in homeostasis. And so they would give them dosages of, that's the international sign for a tincture, by the way. I'm like, they would give them dosages, consistent dosages of Lady Slipper, and it would help to stabilize the person, bring about homeostasis, so that it was easier to transition off the drugs and things like that. And so you would even see it in severe back injuries and things like that, is they would use Lady Slipper to help restart homeostasis. And so it does induce sleep, it induces deep relaxation, but it's very stabilizing and normalizing to the body, more so than even vetiver, or excuse me, valerian. And so in that is one where I've mixed a little bit of valerian in with the Lady Slipper just to augment it a bit. But the Lady Slipper tincture is almost all Lady Slipper with just a hint of valerian.
Would that work for alcohol addiction?
Yeah, any sort of addiction, like any, it's not going to be the only thing. There's a good herb to use when trying to help somebody transition off alcohol. There's this herb called I don't know if I'm saying it right, kudzu or kudzu. It's like Kudza, and it helps to reduce the cravings for alcohol. Yeah, it's like I think it's like a weed. It's like a really prolific weed, like down in the South, and very good for treating the cravings for alcohol.
They're asking, these tinctures have no alcohol?
No, they have some alcohol in. We use alcohol as an extraction. Glycerin doesn't extract very well. I mean, it extracts, but it doesn't. Alcohol and vinegar are the two best ways to extract herbs. And so here we do both. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think the patient is instructed to not take anything with alcohol, like by the rehab people.
Yeah, I understand. We might be able to make something with vinegar if we had a heads up, but it's about a 4 to 6 week turnaround time. You got to go through the whole extraction process. And so, if there's something in particular, we can try to address. If not, try using capsule versions of those, or if there's an essential oil available of whatever you're trying to use, you can use that. Yeah.
And Robert did post the link as well for the kudzu. It's
Mhm.
so there's that.
And didn't Deborah have a question? Or?
She had to leave.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The other class that's free before the angel class is the memory and focus class.
Mhm.
I keep forgetting to ask about
I
it.
keep forgetting too. That's been our joke all day, by the way. Yeah. Yeah. I need to look it up.
And so while Greg looks that up, I don't know if you guys saw, but we have a bunch of free classes up on the site. We have the memory and focus. We have the angels and the aura. We put abandonment 2.0 up, and I think that's it, but that's there might be more.
You know, we taught a sleep and memory class, like it was sleep, memory, and lymphatic system, like many years ago. And you know, we didn't look at just like the simple mechanics. We went in and talked about some of the deeper aspects of both memory and sleep and everything. You know, we did the free sleep class a few weeks ago, and that was just very straightforward, like the cycles of, you know, falling asleep and what each stage of sleep is doing and how to hit those targets. We didn't talk about all the little nuanced things. It was just meat and potatoes kind of approach. This is going to be the same for memory. You know, you're looking at neurological function, you're looking at the body's ability to detoxify, you're looking at circulation, you're looking at inflammation, you know, protecting the neurological processes, the neurotransmitters, all these kinds of things, and looking at just what does it mean for memory and what does it mean for focus and some basic mechanics. And so, you know, again, it's a free class. There's a list of oils from you to choose from. You know, they're very standard, like rosemary and basil and, you know, things like that. And even if you don't have them, you know, you still could listen to the things that we're talking about. But, you know, most of them are things that you would use all the time. And so I think most of you probably have a lot of the oils or like close to it. And so, you know, there is a bit of a kit for purchase if you want to do that. And I kind of threw in like, I don't know, fancy thing or two, and we'll go through and we'll address the mechanics of memory, and we'll address the mechanics of focus and cognitive function and cognitive abilities, and how to improve that in kind of easy ways that are something that can be done daily. You know, we also have a tincture that I'm just putting together that also is like the lazy man's way of doing some of the things we're talking about in class. Is, you know, just take a couple of dropperfuls of something. And so, you know, we're trying to make it as easy or as deep as you want to go. Like, so, you know, if you just want to standardize something that's real easy on a daily basis, there should be something there for you. And if you're really wanting to go deep and treat some of the memory and focus mechanisms and protect the brain as you age and protect the nerves and the nervous system, we can go down that rabbit hole as well.
Awesome.
A good way to support the things you do in the ORIC programming. Like if you're working memory support and ORIC programming, this is like how Lolly was saying, what about a salt bath? What about this? What about that? It's like a way to kind of see, like if you're going down that rabbit hole, there'd be ways to support that within the things that we're talking about this weekend, you know. Yeah. And so we still have a little bit of time. Let's do let's do just a little tiny bit of a practice. Let me look something up here. Let's do this. How about if you have hyssop, let's pull out the hyssop. If you don't have hyssop, maybe use like frankincense or eucalyptus. Spruce. Chakra root cleanser. Hyssop if you have it though. Okay, so you're going to close your eyes for a moment. You have your hyssop. Your awareness is on the back heart. Take nice, long, slow, deep breaths with your awareness on the back heart. Now, move your awareness to your navel. Your awareness is on your navel. You're taking nice, long, slow, deep breaths. Nice, long, slow, deep breaths. Awareness is on your navel. Now move your awareness to your head, the top of your head. And then just be still. Just be still. Let everything go. Now, you're going to hold the bottle to your chest. Your chin's going to go down. You're going to inhale. Hold your breath. Move your head up. Exhale. Down. Inhale. 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 Up. Exhale. Just be still for a moment. And begin inhaling. Your awareness is on the back of your knees. Move your awareness down to the ankles. The soles of your feet. Your awareness is on the soles of your feet. And then just let go. We're going to be doing a little bit more of that in the Stara prayer petition blessing, which we're shifting over to right now. Please join us if you can. It's just a little 15 minutes where we do a little quick meditation and blessing we do every week. And so join us if you can. We're posting the link. And if not, hopefully we see you guys on the weekend. So take care.